Hey guys, Marsegid here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to be taking a look at the sub EZA for the INT Super VEGETA. We have to replay the stages of the physical transforming Vegeta EZA in order to get all of his medals, and now we have him fully EZA'd and we can take a look at what he can do. So he's an interesting unit. Reading his kit, he seems like he could be okay. But he is one of these units that they do this a lot with the Android/Cell Saga units, I notice, where they give them all these buffs against androids or against Cell specifically. So then it makes it weird when you try and run them in other events, right? He greatly raises attack and raises defense for one turn. There's no comma after the raises attack, so they are both just for one turn. Does supreme damage and then seals super attacks. And then he gets key +2 attack and defense 150, additional attack and defense boost by up to 150. The more HP remaining, the greater the boost. So this is something that can come back to bite you, of course, in harder events. If you take a ton of damage and then this Vegeta's on the next turn, he's going to have much lower stats. Now, he does get an additional attack and defense 50% when performing a super. He has a medium chance to perform a crit, and then launches an additional attack that has a medium chance of becoming a super when HP is 50% or more. So you do get that extra super chance, which can be good for raising the defense as well as the attack. And then he gets a guaranteed crit against android enemies and a guaranteed super against a Cell enemy. So we've jumped into the Cell red zone stage here, mainly because I like to use this stage to showcase units, but obviously it's a place where he's going to get his full buffs active. So it's kind of not really a super realistic representation of what he can do in like a harder event where you're not fighting a Cell, but I kind of just want to see some examples of what he's going to be able to do on one of these normal turns where, you know, I say normal turns, on one of these turns against a Cell, because we have like the dismal future Cell stage, which is stage 2, but the problem with that is I saw some people mentioning it, like when his EZA was going to come out, that he's going to be useful for that stage, but you have to remember on global, of course, with him coming out after the worldwide celebration, I imagine most people, we've probably already beaten the dismal future Cell stage, right? So when it comes to replayability for some of these red zone stages, oh damn, he's going off on this turn. We get the hidden potential additional as well, so he should take him out here. When it comes to them, like the replayability of these red zone stages, we've seen that they'll add missions every now and then for some of the harder stages, right? Like the final stages more often than not, but they don't so much revisit these other stages. Now, the big exception to that rule, of course, was when the unit we have on the team right here, the LR Super Saiyans, released. As part of that celebration, right, we got the AGL Android 13 EZA, and so they added a bunch of missions to the Android 13 Red Zone stage, and then, of course, that was, you know, they made it infinite attempts. Probably the only time I've ever replayed the Android 13 Red Zone, apart from when we've done random challenge runs on stream, right, where we've beaten like every red zone set of stages with certain teams. But other than that, there's never really much of a reason to replay them. So this Super Vegeta being good against that dismal future red zone Cell is not exactly like, you know, a huge advantage, because most people, you've probably beaten that stage already. And even though he can probably be useful in that stage, I don't feel like there's going to be many people who, you know, you can only just quite not beat that stage with a team that you have. That same team, by putting Super Vegeta on it, you're then going to be able to beat it, right? Because, I mean, take into account here, we're running him on the Super Saiyans 200% team. He's on a couple of 200% teams, but this seemed like an interesting one to run him on. But this is a good example of, like, the rest of the team is so powerful. Like, I could switch out Super Vegeta from this team for almost anyone else on the Super Saiyan category, and it probably wouldn't make a huge... I mean, of the good units, right? Like, I'm not going to throw on some random free-to-play or, like, an SR or something, right? But I could put on almost any of the sort of upper-tier, like, summonable LRs or units that have EZAs and stuff like that. And obviously they're going to be able to do very well in this setup. But we're looking at about 230k defense without any support. Remember, he gets 50% on super from his passive, so he goes up to close to 350. He's getting 30% for the turn from his super attack. And so against a Cell, where he's going to get multiple supers in one turn, then we have the potential to get up to levels of like 5, maybe even 600k defense. But that's only if we're getting off all of those super attacks. So then if we take him into an event where we're not fighting a cell, and he ends up doing like 1 super, and then the additional from his passive, if we are above the HP restriction, is only a normal instead of the high chance to be a super, then he's going to be rocking basically like what, 330, maybe 350 at the highest K defense, which isn't even enough to tank normals from some of the tougher bosses. So I mean, his damage output definitely has the potential to be very good, and in some of these other stages where we are going to get android enemies, then him getting a guaranteed crit is obviously something that is very powerful. It really is a shame for both him and Trunks. It's kind of like the theme of this celebration on Global, I guess. It's a shame that this stuff came out after the worldwide celebration, because this guy would have been an interesting option to put on that team versus Cell the first time, like when his event came out. And then of course, you know, for Christmas when we got the Android 13 stuff, it would have been kind of interesting to run this guy maybe on one of those teams for the Android 13 missions as well, especially because he's on the Super Saiyans category. Some of the missions were based around that, obviously, so you could use the new LR. So it would have been pretty cool to actually be able to use him. But of course, he came out after the worldwide celebration, which not only means we missed out on those opportunities, but in a similar fashion to the Tech Trunks, it means he's also now released into a meta where the hardest content that's available in the game is not really content that is like super good for him to be taking part in, you know? So it's kind of a bit of an awkward situation, but I suppose it is what it is. You know, at some point we'll get more Cell Saga stuff. I mean, this, you know, the Android/Cell Saga buffs with the Trunks release, we got the worldwide. It's interesting that, you know, the Androids and Cell were stages in the Dismal Future Red Zone, but we've not properly revisited the Cell Saga since, I guess, what, the Golden Week with STR, Goku and Gohan, and then AGL Cell. So we definitely need a new Perfect Cell. So some sort of difficult content in the future with more androids, enemies, or a big new Cell boss is definitely something that we could see. But then, of course, the problem is, if we continue to get even a similar level of power creep with the events that we've been getting at the moment, like even if the next big celebration was Cell Saga themed, the events are probably going to be slightly tougher than, you know, the Dismal Future Red Zone stages that we have now, which means that this guy, even when new content comes out with a Cell enemy, could potentially already be a bit outdated, which unfortunately, that is a bit of a trend with Dokkan with some of these units. Like, think about all these extreme units like Turles, AGL Turles with his EZA, and then the physical Turles when he came out. These units come out, and it's like, oh, well, you know, if at some point soon we get an event where we fight a Goku family enemy, then these units could be really good. And then all this time passes, and we either don't get those events, or we end up getting them so far down the line that those units that really wanted them to release months and months before are just not usable anymore, right? Like, imagine if it wasn't until Worldwide Celebration 2014 that we then got like a Cell Saga themed celebration, and the Red Zone, maybe even like, you know, kind of like this one is, where the last 2 or 3 stages technically all involve Zamasu and or Goku Black. But imagine if we got like a new 5-stage Red Zone in the 2014 Worldwide Celebration, where the last 2 phases were different versions of Cell. They're going to be like harder than Fusion Zamasu, most likely. And so then, depending on typings, like, is this guy even going to be good then? I mean, if they're INT, if they're tech bosses, maybe. But otherwise, I'm not really too sure. So let us go ahead and jump into an actual one of these Dismal Future Red Zone stages and see what sort of numbers we're getting against one of these tougher bosses, because this is where it's going to be a real indication of how useful he's actually going to be outside of these few stages where you fight a Cell, right? So if we go into Dismal Future here, let's try the versus Zamasu, because at least the final phase is tech. So this is a stage where I could see you maybe actually like bringing this guy on the team. I'm not sure about that Goku at the end, the World Tournament one, but I suppose if I bring, let me bring the Yema instead of Whis, so that if we get Goku on like a random turn, we could go ahead and use him. But yeah, let's go ahead and just jump in. What should be in slot 7? Oh, he actually is. Of course he is. Of course he's in slot 7. I thought, you know what, we'll quit the event and go straight into a stage on the other event without me having to cut and like edit around it and all that stuff. And we'll just go ahead and jump straight in and see what we can do with our boy. So, of course, he's in slot 7. So, what are the betting? You know, the number of times I've been doing recordings off screen where I've gone to jump into another event and then we have the showcase unit and they're in slot 7 and it happens like twice in a row. But here we go. He's on turn 1. So, this is what we want to see. We'll just see how well he performs on turn 1. Type neutral against Zamasu. Of course, he's not getting attacked. But I guess we could put him in slot 3. We're not going to kill Zamasu in one turn, are we? So, right, we can't get the orbs for you, but you've got type advantage, so I suppose it doesn't matter too much. We'll do this. And so we're at the 240 mark. So 241k defense. He gets 50 on super, so that's like 360. He gets 30% from his actual super attack effect. So he goes up to around 400k defense. But this is going to be Zamasu post super. We are type neutral, and obviously we will be post super, but so is he. So I'm not sure. Does base Zamasu in this stage increase his attack on super? He might not actually. But even so, like the best case scenario is we can get our main super, our additional from our passive that has a high chance to become a super, and then we could get the hidden potential, and then that would be 3 supers in one turn. That would give him a pretty decent defense raise. He might be able to tank for double digits if we get that turn. But let's see. So he's at 6.4. And then we're not obviously going to get a guaranteed crit. We do get a crit though. We do get the additional from the hidden potential. So he's getting up to what now? Close to 400, maybe over 400k defense. We don't get the hidden potential. And then he takes 6 to 12,000. I was going to say the 6,000 wasn't too bad, the 12,000 not so great, but 18,000 from 2 attacks as the average. That is actually pretty decent. This rotation is not good, but I suppose if I just Yema here, then chances are Trunks probably kills, right? So if we do that, and then we get onto the tech phase. So I mean, again though, I suppose the biggest problem is, like we were saying with the Cell, of course he supered straight away. Of course, as we said with the Cell event, you're not really probably going to get many reasons to replay the Zamasu stage. It's the Fusion Zamasu stage, which is the one that is more likely to see them add missions and stuff to. And of course, it should go without saying that this Super Vegeta is not going to be good in that stage, because the highest we've seen him with start of turn with no support is 240k. So 240k defense start of turn, that means he's going to take what, like 300k from the Zamasu AoE? And then even if you do get through the first phase, you have type disadvantage in the second phase. So not only are either phase just absolutely going to vaporize him with a super attack, but I mean post super, those Zamasu normals do such insane damage, like physical to int, especially physical to super int, that this Vegeta would just get absolutely destroyed. So it's honestly not even worth like seeing his performance in that stage in particular, because you would just never use him in that stage, right? He's just not going to be good against Fusion Zamasu, so we just wouldn't take him into that stage, right? So we'll go ahead and do this. We should get to see hopefully one turn against the tech phase, but I mean honestly he tanked a little bit better than I expected against the INT Zamasu, but INT Zamasu being phase 1, obviously not quite as hard. I mean still able to hit reasonably hard. So after getting the double super, because remember we could have got the hidden potential as well, and then that would have been the triple super. We'd have got an extra 30% defense on top, so then we absolutely would have tanked that for double digits, which is good. But a super, you know, we're still probably looking at him potentially getting one shot from that super attack. And then of course remember, as we've already said, his defense is very reliant on how much HP you started the turn with, and even if you start the turn on low health and then get a heal from like an ability or picking up same type orbs or even using an item, of course, his defense is still going to be at that low level. So that could be a huge liability, even if you are able to, like I say, get, you know, a full heal or something from an item. an active skill, something like that, he's going to suffer greatly during that turn. And unless you are up against the tech enemy, or, you know, a cell, or you just get really lucky and you get like the triple super, it's not going to be looking super good for him, which is a shame, because I've always liked the unit. Like, I think the art is cool. The fact that it has him kicking Cell, and Cell is in like the top corner of the card art. I always thought that was cool. But yeah, God, Goku dodged the super, thank goodness. But yeah, I mean, look at this, right? We're starting the turn on 35% HP. So what is his defense? 183k. Also, we don't really have anyone on this rotation that can tank in slot 1. And if I use the active skill with the Super Saiyans, they'll probably just kill, like, and then put them in slot 1. They're just going to kill these guys before they attack. I mean, I guess if I do this, will they kill here from the... without having used the active skill? They're not going to tank super well in slot 1, so if we get supered, we probably will die. But actually, they tank the normals okay, so that's fine. But yeah, there is a possibility they just pop off and kill Zamasu and Rose here. So, let's see. Don't finish them off. Oh. Again, of course, this is the turn where I don't want them to go too crazy. They get all the additional supers, because Super Vegeta could kill them, and then we don't even get to see him actually tank. But and a normal as well. Okay. So only 5. I guess to be fair, it's his attack and defense that is affected by the start of turn stats. So unfortunately, not a crazy attack stat. We do get the additional super from the passive, though, so he is going to finish them off. So, I mean, I guess that was a decent showing from him at the end. I mean, he didn't let us down completely. He tanked reasonably well against INT Zamasu. So, let me know what you guys think of the INT Super Vegeta down below in the comments. He's obviously not the craziest, like, sub-EZA, but he could be useful against some tech bosses. And if we do get future Android or Cell bosses, then obviously he has the potential to be useful, especially if they are tech. But I mean, like I say, if we get like a really difficult Cell boss 6 months from now and he's physical, is this Vegeta going to be that good against him? Who knows? Potentially not, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.